your computer can be hacked right now. Could be a virus in your camera and you don't know because you're not aware about it. So first thing is awareness.
I think data is everything. So you go into Tesco's, use your club card, that's data that Tesco's is collecting about you.
We're seeing Instagram bots, we're seeing people's Instagram accounts getting hacked, we're seeing everything that you have on your phone can now become kind of vulnerable in a way.
If you want to protect your data, just don't use the internet, yeah? I'm going to be real honest with you. Don't use Wi-Fi. The moment that you connect to a Wi-Fi, that Wi-Fi holder has the access to your complete phone.
My name is Michael Harding. I know a little bit about data. I don't know that much about data, but our speakers for today, they definitely know a lot more about data than I do. Some of the panelists I've met before, some I haven't. Our panelists today are none other than Scarlett Stewart, Deborah Mungai, did I pronounce that correctly? Oh, fantastic. And Barry Paisley. Okay, so let's get into today's panel about data. Let's just go across and just introduce ourselves and a little bit about what you do, why someone would come and talk to you about data. Let's start with yourself, Scarlett.
My name is Scarlett. I come from a data background, so I kind of sit within data as a tester, an engineer, and a business analyst, mainly on like cloud migration stuff. I also have a music background. Today, I'm going to try as hard as I can not to talk technically, because I'm not someone, although I am very technical, I don't like when people talk technically because a lot of the time it just goes over people's heads. So yeah, I'm going to try and speak as non-technically as possible today.
And next, Deborah.
My name is Deborah Mungai. I have my background in cybersecurity. That's what I specialized in school. But I am very ambitious, I'd say, very multi-talented. So I am in the marketing space as well. I'm a model as well. I'm a creative as well. So yeah, my background is in cybersecurity, is what I studied. I'm grateful enough to be in an institute where it didn't just teach me about cybersecurity. I also learned about computer networks. I also learned about coding and things like that. So when it comes to your tech goal, I'll be your tech goal for the day.
And Barry?
My name's Barry Paisley. I founded canistore.io. We store intellectual property on the blockchain. We remove functions from the internet where it's not safe onto the blockchain. Currently, we're targeting the music industry and we're allowing creators to protect their copyrights on the blockchain, right? Because data is being stored in unsafe places, but we'll get into that.
Okay, brilliant. So, data. Why is that even important to have a conversation about?
I think data is everything. So you go into Tesco's, use your club card, that's data that Tesco's is collecting about you. You use a tube, that's data that TfL is collecting about you. It's literally everywhere. Especially now we're moving into a more cashless society. Based on those two examples, that is just data collection. Everything you do is data collection. You take a flight, it's data collection. So I think it's really important to understand and know how that affects you, because obviously from you doing all of those things, whether you do it, like for example, through music, I used to travel a lot. Most weekends I wasn't in the country. And through that, a digital profile has been built of me. I have no idea what that digital profile is based on, I can remember maybe 5 years ago, maybe I bought a packet of Jelly Ranchers in Target in America. But if I don't know what my digital profile is, I have no idea what's being built of me. So yeah, it's very important.
Obviously, one of the big things that I see often when it comes to data is everyone's very fearful about data. They're like, oh no, I don't want this company taking my data. Da, 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 da. Is it a good thing or a bad thing for companies to have our data? Is there a way that a company having our data might actually help us or benefit us?
I think so, yes. I think it's good and it's bad. I mean, why do you need to know everything that I do? But also, it's just easier. We are moving into a society, unfortunately, where we just like ease. We want everything to be easy. So I would rather Tesco send me something about, I don't know, sweets than mushy peas based on my buying. So I think there's good and there's bad. And I think if you are really worried about that, it's something that, you know, I know most times when accepting cookies and data, I don't read it because I know what I do is going to be tracked anyway. But if you do or are really worried about that, then make sure you're reading what you're accepting, because that's the only way. Otherwise, you're going to stay fearful. And I think being in a state of fear, especially with data, doesn't allow you to move forward.
Well, that obviously leads us on beautifully to security. So in the world that we're living in now, we're seeing Instagram bots, we're seeing people's Instagram accounts getting hacked, we're seeing everything that you have on your phone can now become kind of vulnerable in a way. what would you say are some of the really simple steps that people forget that they can probably do to protect themselves?
All right, so one thing that came up to my mind right now is there's something called authorization, which is you having the password to go into an account. And then the second thing is authentication. So I don't think most of us we don't want to do the two-step authentication because it's just too long. So things like authentication really, really help a lot because we don't realize how much things get hacked. We don't realize. Like your computer can be hacked right now. Could be a virus in your camera and you don't know because you're not aware about it. So first thing is awareness, knowing about things like phishing, knowing when someone sends you an email and they're trying to get sensitive information from you. One thing is awareness, and the second thing is you're also taking action. So when it comes to things like passwords, we all probably have the same password for everything, right? One thing that I can teach you guys today, so you can go home with something that I've taught you today. So there's something called algorithmic passwords. So those are passwords that you kind of create that will help you remember. So an algorithm, let's say for example, logging into Instagram, and let's say I have something significant about Instagram. Maybe I want to use the name Insta, or I want to use a word that is similar that will remind me of it. So there's an algorithmic password which kind of helps you create a password kind of like using a certain order or a certain way, and that will be different for each and every single platform. I don't know if that made sense, but let's say for example for Instagram I decide to use, let's say Debbie Insta, and then I put an X and I put an @ I will probably use the same format, but I will use it on a different account, or I'll put like, let's say email, and then I'll put Debbie, or I put Deborah, or I put an @ or something like that. So it's like a certain format that you use, and that will help you with every single platform, and it will be easier for you as well to remember. So things like that are important for us to implement. Another thing is two-factor authentication. That's really, really important because someone can have your password, but if they don't have your phone or they don't have a second platform, they won't be able to log in into your account. So that's another thing. First thing, awareness. Second thing is actions.
Okay, nice. Awareness and action, everybody. Awareness and action. So in terms of the awareness, is there things that people can do to perhaps monetize their data themselves? If these big corporations are monetizing our data, is there any ways that we can do it ourselves? Perhaps maybe in the blockchain space, you've seen that?
Well, I'm of a straightforward thinking, right? I've been on the technical side of things for the last 3 years. I've had the opportunity to travel the world, speak with people, speak to high-level developers. I'm going to be honest with all of you lot. If you want to protect your data, just don't use the internet, yeah? I'm going to be real honest with you. Don't use Wi-Fi, yeah? The moment that you connect to a Wi-Fi, that Wi-Fi holder has the access to your complete phone, all your passwords. So by you going into a train station or, Tesco's and connecting to Wi-Fi, you're vulnerable, yeah? By a show of hands, who here has heard of Web3? Who here understands what Web3 is? So that's excellent. Previously, we just spoke about passwords. In Web3, on my app, Canastore, there's no passwords, right? Web3, we have identities, right? So when you connect to a Web3 social media platform or a Web3 financial system, you connect your identity, right? So therefore, it's unhackable, right? On Canastore, for example, you can mold your identity to your key lock, right? That means to access my account where my valuable data is, you need to go through this phone's key lock. So somebody in another continent, therefore, cannot access my blockchain account, right? And this is what makes Web3 so special. And this is why Web3 is about ownership, protecting your data, and then having the ability to then monetize your data because you own your data, yeah? Wherever you upload your picture right now on the internet is going to land more likely on one of Amazon's servers, right? We previously spoke about, sorry, I'm going on a rant because this is what I'm passionate about and this is what I want people to understand, right? We just spoke about social media, yeah? We just spoke to some individuals that have gone viral and they're making money from their account. The moment on a Web2, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, the moment you say something wrong, a small amount of people, a centralized system doesn't agree with, you're locked off.
Cancel.
You're cancelled, right? So how secure are you? So you can create a TikTok, go viral, start making money, say the wrong thing and get locked off. Like, think about it. If you're going into a business, that's a very volatile thing. Do you understand? Especially if that's your income. Web3 is a different space.
Let's break down for the people what Web3 actually is. So those of you that don't know, there's been two versions of the internet so far. Web 1 was when it was the old dial-up. Anyone remember that? Or am I really old? Put your hand up if you remember that. Thank you. I'm not that old. Okay, brilliant. So the old school internet, that had that. It was dial up. It used to be super slow. It used to take about a minute to load up one page, right? And then that was called read internet, because all you could do was read. Now, Web 2 is where broadband, and it started to speed up a little bit. And now you had read and write. So that meant you could actually now start watching things on the internet like Netflix. You could now do things like YouTube. You can now play games on the internet like Call of Duty and so on and so forth. So things were more connected. Now, Web 3 is about ownership. So it's now that third level where the internet's going to be even faster, as we're seeing with our phones, 5G, 6G, whatever. But now we're going to be actually able to own the data and the things that we do. So say, for example, with games, you're going to be able to own the things that you earn in the games and then sell them. With documents, you're going to be able to own the documents that you create straight away. Your social media profiles, you're going to own those social media profiles, just like what this gentleman's building here, instead of the corporations owning the profiles. Does that make sense of 1, 2, 3? So it's just simple as read, write, and now own. That's the key part. So in terms of ownership, what would you say, let's talk about the potentials of the future of data. What would you say are some of the things you've seen and you've explored that are looking like are going to be part of the major future of data?
I think what you were saying before about monetizing your data, this is just a theory I have, so don't shoot me on this. I think we're going to see people actually moving away, well, technically savvy people moving away from things like, and I'll explain what they are after, like LastPass, Apple saved passwords, and so on and so forth. The reason I say this is, I don't know if anybody knows what LastPass is. Does anyone know what that is? Perfect. So what LastPass is essentially, it's a place where people store passwords. And a lot of companies do this, more so smaller companies. Last year, I actually worked for a company and LastPass had so many breaches. And the thing is, once you get a breach in LastPass, unless LastPass tells you, you don't actually know if your data has been breached until something happens, because they're holding, I don't know, let's say there's 10,000 companies that are signed up to LastPass and then 20,000 individuals. You have to hope that when there's a breach, the hacker hasn't touched your data essentially. And I had come from a firm, a very big firm, where like that wasn't a go. You couldn't touch anything like that. If you had anything on LastPass, you were basically fired. So big emphasis, by the way. I think we'll see moving away from that. And the reason I say that is I'm noticing more and more, like, for example, if I take my mum, if I ask my mum, she's like, oh, can you help me with this? Because I work in tech, I must be able to fix everything. She'll be like, can you help me with this? And I'm like, what's your password? She's like, I don't know. And then she goes over to this book and she's got everything written down in. And I'm like, why have you got everything written down in a book? Like, what if the house burns down? What if something happens? However, my mum is very unlikely to be hacked because all her passwords are very different. They're not stored anywhere. She doesn't accept cookies. So it's less likely. I'm not saying she won't get hacked, but it's less likely. And I think we're seeing that now. You don't hear so much news about it, but it does happen with Apple saved passwords as well, that getting hacked. And a lot of the time your Apple saved passwords are all similar, as Deborah was saying. So I think we will see a move away from that. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that's interesting. Going back to the old school, that's what people have got to do, is just back to pen and paper, back to book.